The words and inflections I'm using are to convey the introduction to a video. That video is episode 5 of A Very Welsh Park. Now that my introduction is complete, the main content can begin. Yes, you find yourself once again listening to an incredibly funny British bloke say words whilst watching a time-lapse of a virtual and very fictional theme park being built. At this stage, I feel it's necessary we all question how we're spending our free time, and in the grand scheme of things, what we're doing with our lives. Too much? Well, how about just liking this video instead? It's much easier and probably won't lead to an existential crisis. Today we will be constructing a rather large food and drink complex, marking the start of the green zone. Wowee. Our park is lacking much verticality, so I aimed high, giving our building 2 stories. Can you even imagine? Well, no need, because it's literally happening now. After doing some fairly painless pathing, I started constructing some placeholder walls, just to get our initial grids into position. This section I rotated without angle snap. I truly have lost the plot. As I talk about in my basics video, it's always best to get the shops and facilities down first. I went with Tiki Cheeky, Pipshot smoothies and a toilet, although I later swapped out the smoothie shop for reasons I'll explain soon. Gosh, such a cliffhanger. And thus begins removing sections from the building group. By the end of the video, I have no clue how many groups this building is made up of, and to be honest, I don't want to know. With our key grids in place, we can replace the placeholders with the actual pieces, which happen to be natural wood and concrete foundation, if you must know. To avoid a boxy build, I left room for a balcony on the upper level. Time for a quick bit of admin. I snuck a staff room in downstairs and buried some barriers to guide the guest and staff pathfinding. After cutting a couple of window-shaped holes, I gave our balcony a fence. I used log-sawn planks to begin our heavy trim work. Next, a few half-sawn logs create some lovely faux pillars. If you can remember all the way back to 3 minutes ago, I mentioned this will be part of our green zone, so quite understandably, I added some green trims. Using the lit colourable panels, I added some neon like this is the flippin' 80s. And what will our adventurous eatery be called? Well, what do you think of Big Bite? Don't answer because I can't hear you, and this was recorded months ago. Can you believe there are still walls to be placed? I can't, and I placed them. If you're not a fan of walls, never fear, we're back on trims again. I told you the trim work would be heavy. To protect our interior from the ferocious Welsh elements, I added some shutters using, as always, locomotive rails. As you had probably guessed, our balcony won't be made of stone, so I replaced it with some wooden decking. Do you remember episode 3? No, me neither. But I did create some custom plank walls, and look, I'm doing it again. You can't quite see from this angle, but these stairs widen at the bottom, so this truly took some mad skills with a Z. I took the things and put it on the other thing. To really shove the nature theme down our guests' throats, I planted an enormous Brazil nut tree, a swamp tree, and then went absolutely mental with foliage. Okay, maybe not absolutely mental, but maybe a tiny bit unhinged. Once again, tackling these wonky stairs, I added some custom fencing using pillars and rope. Stop it, it's not the best fence you've ever seen, but thank you. Before we lose sight of the pathing due to some terrain painting, I felt it best to get our benches placed. I even stuck some cute little parasols in like they're cocktails from the 90s. To blend the rest of the plaza, I placed some ground cover in the form of TMTK stone. Doesn't this tie everything together wonderfully? Very nice of you to say so. You know how much I love a seam. For this, I used an upside-down crypt roof detail. So innovative. Boom. Just like that, we have a new shop. I added a Pipshot water to the ground floor, which is only apt considering they sponsor our log flume opposite. The usual shop details along with some wonderful Pipshot branded TMTK. Okay, story time. Rather than having food and drink copied to the top level, I thought, I know, I'll just have the type of food and drink on offer, like most shops do. I added chicken, because that's what Tiki Cheeky sells, and then smoothies, because that, believe it or not, is what Pipshot smoothies sell. Now, not only would smoothies not fit, if you take a step back, our shop would then read chicken smoothies. Gross. So I thought, never mind, I'll swap our shop, and thus our sign, for Pipshot juice. There's nothing wrong with, oh god, chicken juice. I challenge you, there is no type of drink you can add to this building that can be paired with chicken. Water? Ew. Milkshake? Hideous. You'll be pleased to hear that in the end I removed both and the top level just reads Big Bite. Crikey, what an ordeal. Anyway, now we will have chicken liquids on the brain, let's distract ourselves with some glorious backstage. After placing the usual fire exit, I added ventilation, extraction and cabling. Time for the last load of trims. Well, this is a large building, there was always going to be a lot. Did you know there's a Little Socks Discord? It's okay if you didn't, I forgive you. But you can make it up to me by joining. We've nearly reached 500 members. That's a lot of like-minded Planet Coaster folk in one place. Come hang out. I created a couple of windows off camera, but don't fret, I'm about to do the walkway one on camera. So generous. I used glass and various beams. I stole our lovely wooden fascia from the entrance to spruce up our plain walls a bit. With all of these enticing shops, some ATMs seem like a sensible addition. A bit of signage adds the final little details to the ground level. To let some daylight into the kitchen, I copied our custom windows from the security office. You never got to see these, so here you go. It's interior time, and with that, time to channel my inner nerd Chacho. I started by creating custom flooring with barn doors and wooden panelling. Next, beams. As always, I quote-unquote painted our shop fronts white. Then laid our standard metal tread plates. You know the deal by now. To create a kitchen door, I adapted our usual fire exit. I added porthole windows, push plates and kick plates, all using arc shapes. A restaurant isn't much of a restaurant without seating. To give our walls some character and to double as splash protection, I added some panelling using arc shapes. For the opposite side, I extended the top layer to act as some shelving for condiments. You may think these are beams, but they're actually columns, For this end, I made a start on a feature wall by painting it green. Yes, I should be an interior designer, you're right. As I like to do with a lot of my interiors, I began work on an open ceiling by painting a 1 meter section black. I lined it with haunted house pillars. It wouldn't be much of an open ceiling without some exposed trussing, would it? Back on our feature wall, I hung some of our signature wooden decor. I painted some spots on the floor to help stupid people know where to queue. Next, I went TMTK mad, so console players might want to avert their eyes. Look, don't be jealous, I told you to look away. Over on the other side of the walkway, I gave it much of the same treatment. Some seating, floor cover, panelling, and of course, trims. I gave our walkway the same feature wall. Is it still a feature wall if it appears twice? Comment down below if you have the answer. It's lighting time. I started with the highlights and accents in the form of light spill and various glows from the fire exit signs and Coke machine. Next, I made use of that exposed truss by adding some studio lights. As always, I used some area lights to create an even cover. With the main lighting in place, I boosted our accent colours from earlier. For the other room, I went with some standard downlighters using box lights, whilst the walkway gets the same truss treatment. With the lighting done, we can cover it all up. Adding black panels gives a nice matte black ceiling effect before we add the roof itself. With our flat roof complete, I added some final details in the form of AC, cabling, and even a couple of rogue planks. What's the point in having a roof if you can't stand on it? I added a cage ladder to the side of the build. As this area is accessible to the public, I felt it necessary to add some security measures to the ladder. Finally, time for some exterior lighting, showing off some stunning new fixtures by my curious mind. And just like that, you've been watching a grown man build a pretend food court for 25 minutes. When the world said read a book or go outside, you said no. I am my own person, I have agency, and I'll do what I like. And you know what? I'm proud of you. See you next week.